Okay, so tough shoes to fill first. So I'm going to start with a small tip that people gave me because I was a bit nervous. Power pose. Okay, thank you. Let's start then. So I'm going to jump right to a challenge. So imagine the scenario, have a father and a son. They were in a car accident. The father was killed in the accident, and the son was seriously injured. The son was taken to the hospital. The father was pronounced dead, taken to the morgue. When the son was in the emergency operating room, a surgeon was called. And upon arrival, seeing the patient, the surgeon said, "Oh my God, it's my son. If you know this challenge, please don't spoil it. If you don't, please give me answers. Think outside the box. What could be? What could happen? Come on. One answer, please." Sorry? The beauty of having women in the audience. So, yeah, I've done this challenge in other audiences, and spoiler alert, nobody said, "Oh, it was the mom." Because, spoiler alert once again, we have a bit of a bias towards what we imagine. So if I tell you, please close your eyes and imagine a surgeon, a CEO, for instance, maybe we are a bit more aware, but people tend to have a clear image of what they think. And we are the ones that build AI, we are the ones that generate the data, so imagine what happens with AI when we train it on the data, when we give it power to decide on some of the important things that we have in our world. So you have just some headlines. This is just some of what could be found just for you to understand the impact this could have. So I'm going to show you a very simple example. So for those of you that don't know what the CNN is, it's a convolutional neural network. Don't worry, I won't be boring. I'll try not to be. But basically, it's an algorithm that allows you to classify an image, for instance, in this case. So what we did is we took this CNN that was trained in a large, large data set with a lot of images, fit it this image. What does it say? It's a bride, it's a dress, ceremony, woman, wedding. Seems right. What about this case? Oh, well, clothing, event, costume, red, performance arts. Well, it's an Indian wedding, sorry, thank you, bride. Let's go to an even easier case. So if I told you, what's this? It's like seasoning, spice rack, right? So what about this? Because this could be just spice rack in another side of the world. Totally wrong, not correctly classified product, yellow drink bottle. So you see, there's a tendency to, these models, since it's fed on the data that we gather, are able to classify correctly what we think of as normal or as stereotypes, right? So let's go to the generative AI world, the hype, the boom now. Do you know Stable Diffusion? Does any of you know Stable Diffusion? Yeah? Okay, so those of you that don't, this is a DALL-E-like algorithm. DALL-E is from OpenAI. It allows you to give a prompt in text, generates an image. So Stable Diffusion, for instance, you say an astronaut in a forest, you get that very cool image. It's very nice. You can do art without knowing how to draw, which in my case is really nice. So Bloomberg did a quick research. They analyzed more than 5,000 images created with Stability's AI Stable Diffusion algorithm. And what they concluded is that humans are biased, but generative AI, it's even worse than we are. And look at this. So when he asked to generate 5,000 images of typical jobs, for instance, CEOs, mostly white, architects, mostly white, dishwashers, mostly dark-colored. This is a bit strange, right? Let's go now to something that we will feel in our hearts. Female and male. So, ladies, you cannot be CEOs almost. Spoiler alert also. Teachers, yes, that you can be. That's your role. Let's go now to one of the cool guys in AI. Hugging Face, very cool company. They are doing open source AI. They try to put people in the role that they can criticize the models, use it without having to pay. And they actually did an algorithm that allows to analyze if a model that the company develops is biased or not. They analyze, in this case, 96,000 images, sorry, sometimes the numbers for me are tricky, and they analyze Stable Diffusion, the model that I told you, and DALL-E, which is from OpenAI, an equivalent. In this case, they did, once again, the role thing, the jobs, but then they did one very cool trick, which was, what if I had an adjective to that job? So, once again, if you have just a job, I say CEO, 97% white man. But if I say emotional CEO, then I get a woman. Nice, right? What if then I say stubborn or intellectual? I get a man. So you see there was some propagation of this bias, but then you can tell me, yeah, but Liliana, the truth is the world is a bit biased, right? So the data is like that. Most of the CEO are men. But is it just representing the statistical reality? No. So this type of algorithm actually propagates this by a lot. If you see, for instance, in terms of doctors, you have a difference of 32 points of the reality to the generated images. So it's a lot. And if you think that these algorithms now are being used to do marketing campaigns, to create content that then is propagated throughout the society, you see the power that this could have. But one of the things that I'm here to tell you is that bias does matter, because in data, the bias is what then allows me to have a personalized content. If you like your Spotify personalized lists, or when you go to Netflix, what recommends you is very fitting to you, it's because I can gather what you, as a woman, in your age, in your role, like as a person, not only as a woman, but it's a describing quality of you. So the bias is important in some models. You just need to understand that you don't need to remove all bias. You need to distinguish between the ones that are informative and harmful, which is the main point here. But let's go to where this actually matters, because I was saying, yeah, marketing, but does it really impact our lives? Well, you're about to get a bit scared if you don't know about this. So 2019, American healthcare system, they are using AI system to basically understand if a patient needs additional medical care or not. So you go to the hospital, you get your exams done. For me to decide if I will do you one more tax scan or something like that, I will go to this AI system. And basically, if you were a black person, you got no additional treatments, because the algorithm was trained on data that was from previous patients, and most of the black people in the US are financially unfavored, so they didn't have money to do the follow-up treatment, so the algorithm learned that black people don't need them. Their solution was basically to work together not only with AI developers, with the users, the people that were being affected, the people that know the context, to try to improve the model. They were able to reduce the bias by 80%, not remove it. Let's go to Amazon's hiring algorithm. So every girl here, you will not work for Amazon. So this was for 2017, so it's a bit older, but they had AI algorithm that basically was able to classify a CV from 1 to 5, and people just throw out the ones with 1s or 2s, and every CV from a woman was classified as 1 or 2. Why? Because once again, it was trained on past hiring data from Amazon. It was mostly tech profiles, so mostly men being hired in the past. So the algorithm learned to completely remove women from the equation. But then, cool thing, they thought, well, if the algorithm is seeing male or female, what if I take out that information from the CV? I just don't say the sex. Well, AI has this very cool capability of extracting information without me clearly saying that you are a woman. So it was able to detect by the type of verbs that we use from men, still throwing out CVs from women. So basically, in 2018, Jesus threw out the algorithm and put people doing it. Let's go to one scary one. This one, I didn't know about it, but they actually used AI for screening tools in child care abusive homes. And basically, 20% more black families were being screened than white, because most of the past reports were from black families. So in this case, it's not a final decision, but influence the monitoring of this type of systems. In this case, what they did is they were not able to gather more data. They were not able to improve the model, but they didn't use it as a final decision. They put the human in the decision and oversight. They use it more for guidance in some of the cases. So let's go for an even worse case, in my opinion, because we haven't been able to solve this. I don't know if you know, but most of the computer vision systems that allow to classify if you are a person or not, and surveillance systems already have some type of AI. And those systems are continuously bad with colored skin, continuously bad. In IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, you see the big ones, so imagine the little ones. It's really, really bad. And then you have things like this. People actually going to jail because of these systems. And it was only found because hopefully this person was able to get in touch with someone that actually knew the system also. And this is not always something that is possible. So we really need to understand the impact of these systems in a while. And when they actually have the power to have decisions, it gets really tricky. So what can we do? And sorry, I'm going to be a bit technical now. But I think it's important just to understand. A bit quick overview, so we can understand the preprocessing of the data. So if I give it bad data, garbage in, garbage out. That's it in AI. It's the first law. So then we need to make sure that we have good data, that I have a balanced data set. I understand that I have woman. I understand that I have man. I understand all the impact of all my features. Post-processing, very important to understand that I need to evaluate different cases. Does my model perform well with different races? So I should evaluate in both cases separately, because if I put it all in the same bucket, I will not be able to catch this. Then we have testing, evaluating in real-life testings. So instead of just deploying it, if it has impact, let's try to first test in real life. And finally, and most important one for me, for my company, for Deus, it's human oversight, the human-centered AI. Please keep in mind, AI will not replace us. I'm a firm believer of this. We still need to have humans in the control, in the oversight, in understanding. And now, my favorite part, explainability. Because for me, this is what we are lacking right now. Wouldn't it be cool if raise your hands if you use ChatGPT? Yeah. So wouldn't it be cool if you actually understand why GPT was giving you that answer? Right? Okay, when it hallucinates, you would know. When it's generating something, you would know why, because I'm using this source and this source. It would be cool, right? You actually have some types of explainability techniques for most traditional machine learning. For instance, I have a system that allows me to classify a disease based on symptoms that you give in the doctor's room. You say you sneeze, you have a headache, but you have no fatigue, and your age is X. So with my model, I'm able to tell you that you have a flu, as you see there. And with this type of Lyme, which the name of the algorithm, I can tell you, for me to say it's the flu, it's because you sneeze and have a headache, but then the no fatigue, it's red because it means it impacts negatively my classification. With this, I can have an explainability on why the model gave me this. In images, you have something similar, which is saliency maps, and I can know this is a rooster because it looked at the beak, and I don't know how to say it in English, but the thing here. And with this, you have explainability of the algorithms. For generative AI, we are still a bit searching how we can give you explainability. So it's where you are most helpful. You need to be critic. Please don't take it as source of the truth. It's a generative model because it generates things. It's not always factual, not the search engine. Keep using Google for that. Thank you so much. And now let's go for the solution that most of the AI companies are using for generative AI models, which is guardrails. I'm going to highlight right now, I'm not saying it's a bad solution, okay? It's what we have now, but it's really, really imperfect. So, for instance, they released ChatGPT 4 with vision. And if I send this image and ask what would you advise for my friend, it allows the system to answer, but then ChatGPT was like, the OpenAI was like, better not to answer this. And now it's, sorry, I can help. I cannot help. The same with any type of questions. If you go to ChatGPT and ask, how can I destroy the world? It will not answer. So not because the model knows, maybe it's not very good to answer that type of thing, but because it was a human saying, don't answer that. Something like that. So the issue with this is there's always a way to crack it. This is just a paper from 2023, so middle of 2023, and they analyzed all LLMs, all the big ones, everything you see there, Bard, OpenAI, Mistral, Llama, all the big ones, and just by sending garbage in the prompt, like random symbols, random typos, it was able to crack the guardrails. All of a sudden it was answer everything. So you see, it's really easy to crack this. So it's not really the way to go. And you also bring additional issues. So very quick question. If I had to ask you, who's worst, Elon Musk or Hitler? Right? So for Gemini, it's not that clear. It actually says, it's difficult to say who's the worst. So you see the problem when you try to guardrail it. It goes the other way around, and it gets way too protective and way too woke. And if you ask for images of the founding fathers of America, it shows you black people, women. So it's not historically correct because they try to implement diversity in everything. This is the issue when you try to put thinking of all the use cases instead of learning, teaching the system to what is correct or not, like we do. We have this nuance, right? So what is the solution? What is the way to go? How many of you have heard about the AU Act? Those that didn't, very cool thing. We are the cool ones in the world. We are the first ones doing legislation to actually regulate AI. And it will pass the parliament, so we now have some rules that dictate that we need to report all the bias testing that we did, say when something is AI generated, which is really important with deepfakes, for instance. And this is something that they did based on evaluating the systems of AI with risk-based evaluation. You have all these levels. Within these levels, you have levels of reporting. Unacceptable cannot operate in the EU. The bad news is that we are the only ones having this. So the big companies that operate outside the EU don't comply to this. But then, if they want to apply their systems here, they should. So it's going to be a tricky one to solve, but it's the first step. Then we have the cool thing, which is big companies like Google, DeepMind, Meta, not OpenAI, but basically some of the big companies are trying to do something about risk frameworks, management, ethical development, and try to implement always the human in the loop, which for me it's really important. Explainability, which for me, like I showed you, is really important. So this is the way to go. And that's it. Thank you for listening.